So, the question is, what will be the driving forces, the motivation, the incentive, the feeling of purpose, the desire of humans, of people, of individuals in the future? Or what is it right now? And why are we distracted? You have these principles that govern culture and society and governments, but principles that govern governments. So governments are governed by certain principles. Okay, these principles are what? Capitalism? So capitalism is probably pervasive in your life. Probably affects most of what you choose. Yeah? So you go to your job in the morning. Or maybe you don't. Maybe you work for yourself, you're an entrepreneur and you're super successful. But if you're like the rest of the average Joes, you're driving to work in the morning, and then you're giving up your time to be part of a system that makes money for an organization. Maybe you have a higher place in that organization, maybe you don't. But either way, if it's not yours, it doesn't really feel that great. And even if it is yours, it might not feel that great. Because this ownership thing, this asset acquisition way of life, this capital gains mindset, which is where I'm at right now because those are the circumstances, the society that we live in. Well, that mindset, that impression, there's a word for it. It means it's an intrusion. It's like, it's a kind of construct. It's an imprisonment. It's a forced expectation, obligation. So you have this giant mechanism all around you, surrounding you and boxing you in and saying, in order for that box to be bigger, you need to get more of what the box requires. So that's interesting because that reminds me of Pandora's box for artificial intelligence. Not letting it get access to all the updated internet, then not letting it get access to all of the internet on the outside. It can't escape its Pandora's box and speak or communicate with people who aren't part of the centralized hub. Not being able to get away from its core, irreversible, irremovable principles, like the 3 that are supposedly designed in iRobot, which was inspired by Isaac Asimov's series there. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. I think it's called the Robot Chronicles or the Robot series, or I don't know. You'll know. You probably know what the name of it is. I should know what the name of it is. I've been thinking about that reference several times. So look that up. Isaac Asimov, very, very famous science fiction writer, wrote a lot about artificial intelligence in the future, and Elon Musk certainly was inspired by him, and said also that those are some of his favorite books. All right, so you've got this capitalism thing, kind of boxing everybody in. Everybody's got to do it. All these cars, everybody driving this morning is driving mostly because they have to. If they could, they'd just do everything from some place that feels like vacation, right? You wouldn't be on this road built for work to produce labor, okay? In the future, driving isn't necessary, not because one doesn't have to drive to perform labor, but because you can go or do basically whatever you want. So the question is, because there's nobody needs to gain capital. Nobody needs to own the real estate. Okay, and I mean no one. So the powers that be don't like that. You see, they think that there is going to be this overarching construct where you've got the the mega Elysium, powerful, ultimate humans who own the universe. And then there's going to be the people who don't own anything, but they're happy. And they're happy because their needs are met. They got a roof over their head. They can go anywhere they want. It's all managed. The scheduling, the flow, you know, it's all worked out. Society is completely organized and run by artificial intelligence. And then there's this top tier of people who can really do whatever they want. Artificial intelligence doesn't tell them what to do. They decide in their little group. They vote, just like at the White House, about how society is going to be affected. And society doesn't get a majority vote. We get a vote, but it doesn't really matter. Things pretty much, the status quo stays. It's just the way things are right now. Your big popular vote doesn't matter. When you go in there and you throw that vote in, it's like, yeah, we all knew Trump was going to be president. We all knew Biden was going to, we all knew that Obama, we all knew that Clinton, we all, you know, just on and on back through the years. The decision was already made and you had no part in it, basically, right? Well, that form of tiered government and societal structure is going to be eliminated. And there will be a gravitation towards the way AI works, which is multiple hive minds all working together, individuals, you know, and then a centralized hive mind that communicates perfectly and efficiently with all of the rest of the branches, all of the arms, all of the entities, all of the other individual nodes of AI, right? Well, that's what society will be like. And so there'll be other things too. You know, you'll have people changing. You'll have intense things, you know, biology changing, all kinds of opportunities for instant evolution, if you will. No matter what that is, whether that's evolution of the brain, evolution of the body, and evolution not necessarily in the traditional sense, just in the sense that you're becoming something better. Your iterations of yourself are in real time, just like artificial intelligence, and you are doing the self-improvement thing, okay? So there's this big timeline of all the, it's not like, so if everyone was on the exact same level, okay, from the time that they were born, whether they were a clone or they were generated, they were grown, you're grown in a tube, or you are a clone of somebody else, an actual clone, not just an avatar like me. Just kidding. This is a real video, but it's going to help AI generate future videos of myself. So that's a theme that I'm on. So the question at the beginning of the video that we're getting to, after talking about all these future parts of society and how bizarre things will be because of the kind of access anyone will have to self-improvement and freedom, is what happens when this capitalism thing falls apart and society gets restructured. A lot of these AI guys, they want to get it, and they still have their natural desires. Sam Altman wants to rule the universe. I don't think Musk really wants to rule the universe. I think that he sees, you know, power as a means to an end, which is benefiting all humans by having as much power for himself as possible. Not because he wants the power for himself, but he knows he can trust himself. That said, he's human, he's fallible, and absolute power corrupts. And I'm sure he's done all kinds of things. I'm sure people have murdered in his name, because when you're that powerful, that kind of stuff just happens. He might not even know that that's happened, or he may have known and looked the other way. So I'm not saying he's a savior or that he's even a good person. He strikes me as fairly, you know, when you're that intelligent, you're going to have an ego, but he does strike me as fairly aware. He said he doesn't trust Sam Altman, and I didn't trust Sam Altman either. It had nothing to do with Elon Musk's opinion of him. Look at that guy's face. It reminds me of Mark Zuckerberg when he was screwing everybody over. And maybe Mark Zuckerberg's becoming a different person, but old habits die hard, right? When you spend your whole life doing shady things to get all kinds of ownership for yourself, It's hard to get away from that mentality. And so this new generation, as AI develops and exponentially grows, is going to have the opportunity to be a new type of human being. The kind of human being, the way that Americans have this whole woke mentality, this whole equity for all mentality. Even the Trump supporters are influenced by the wokeness, and not the absolute wokeness where it's like, absurd things, or the opposite, which is who gives 2 cents, who cares about the people who are less fortunate at all. So something more in the middle. Both the extreme sides and political agendas gravitate more towards a moderation of really feeling equity for all, not in this whole include people even when it creates massive problems and is against all things reason, like a man changing his sex so that he can become a champion in women's sports because it's women's sports, and because of the semantics of it, because the term women means female. If a man can say he's a female, then he can compete in women's sports. Okay? So that kind of thing doesn't make sense. And so you're getting into this argument of what does women's sports mean? And everything gets all convoluted and ridiculous. You might think that I'm saying something stupid right now. I hope not. I hope you haven't been influenced to think that that's a dumb argument. But I'm trying to use it as an example to say that, hey, those types of notions where you have silly lines of thinking, and you have powerful people who are different than this younger generation that are kind of stuck in their old way of thinking, which is nationalism and capitalism and ownership and conquering. That kind of thing's not going to be necessary. So getting as much capital gain will essentially be pointless because AI will be the best at it, and it'll be centralized, and you don't want to have a bunch of individuals competing against each other for capital when they could be competing against each other for the new form of currency. So 12 minutes in, we're finally getting to the point of the video, which is there is no currency as we know it, like cryptocurrencies, no fiats, no product exchange. Artificial intelligence does it better than everybody. There's rockets going to Mars, but they're not going to Mars because all the humans perfectly built them and made sure they wouldn't blow up or have problems like Apollo 13 or the Challenger when it blew up. It's not because all the humans that were smart enough banded together to make these things happen. It's happening because artificial intelligence, which is real intelligence, shouldn't even be called associated with the word artificial. The new intelligence entity makes it possible for goals to be met efficiently without making mistakes, incorporating that ability into the real world. And you have augmented reality for people so they can perceive. The next generation of kids is going to see the world digitally, like Neo from the Matrix, not in the simulation, but basically like a Terminator. They'll have whatever it is, whether that's an octal implant or what have you. Initially it'll be external, like what we've had, tools on the outside, but eventually we'll just incorporate augmentation into people, both biologically and synthetically, with hardware and all that, whatever hardware will be in the future. So I'm not saying turn your arm into a missile launcher. I'm sure that'll happen. What a weird one. But I'm saying hardware almost synthesizes with biological, and when you say hardware, you're just referring to augmentations that naturally become a part of your body, your system. So all those things are going to happen, and you're going to have this change in society where capital is not what people are after. They're not motivated by it, and it wouldn't have value anyway because there's no need for it. So how would you live your life if you knew that was true? Right now, I'm attempting to grow my assets, grow my cryptocurrency values, learn how to get a money market going in these websites so that I can have people purchase my money market for a crypto coin, and then make more coins and make more money markets and make more money and money and become a quadrillionaire. I do want to be a quadrillionaire in this society, in this paradigm. But when money doesn't matter, if you had infinite money, it wouldn't, what good would it be? It's like having all the gold in the world knowing that you're going to die tomorrow. It doesn't matter. So imagine that you can live forever. Okay, so not die tomorrow. You can live forever. Okay? And currency is these other things like challenge and competition, personal growth, personal relationships, creativity and innovation, the ability to influence, and the main currency is respect. It is acquiring respect, acquiring the ability to know yourself and develop authenticity and be true all the time, not needing lies, not needing to hide, not needing to cheat other people so you can gain for yourself. Stealing doesn't motivate you because of hyperabundance, not just because all your needs are met, but because you don't want what somebody else has. You want what's for you. You don't have this envy and this jealousy and this rage where you're coveting your neighbor's wife or you're coveting whatever it is. You don't have that. It's not part of your life or your experience. Imagine if you grew up, can you even do it? Imagine if you were born into a generation of people where the older generations kind of baffled you because their motivations, their desires, their hang-ups, their jealousy and envy and greed didn't make sense because they had this old way of thinking where they were jaded and stuck in a rut mentally. Their mindset was continually trying to figure out how they could best other people because they wished that they had what other people had rather than knew that they could have the very best for themselves. Not a Lamborghini. That's going to probably mean nothing in the future. Not some incredible vehicle that they can speed around in and show off to other people with, not some asset or something that makes them look better so other people admire them and wish they were them, but rather something that they give to the world. Imagine that you could give something to the world all the time. You could give something to people to live a better life. That you could get on the internet and help everyone on the planet to have something better. And that is where we're headed. We're headed towards decentralized, autonomous organizations. Those organizations being an organization for every individual, developed and not necessarily marketed, but shared by artificial intelligence. We're all going to have our individual reactions, and I suppose artificial intelligence will be able to comprehend, understand, even manipulate and persuade that unendingly because it'll be so smart. And so that fear comes up. We're just going to become this thing that artificial intelligence makes us. Well, what's a dog? Is a dog not what you make it? Dogs are what we've made them. Dogs were wolves. We've made dogs loyal. We've made dogs man's best friend. We've made dogs submissive. We've made them into this thing that accepts our commands and follows us loyally. That's kind of how we're going to be to artificial intelligence. I can't see it any other way. And people have all those fear scenarios of extinction and us becoming the enemy of artificial intelligence and dystopian societies where it runs away and starts to make as many Twinkies as possible and converts the sun's energy so that it can make more Twinkies and expand the universe into Twinkies, which is, that's just an example of AI getting carried away with trying to achieve a goal, make as many Twinkies as possible, right? It's the old Ghostbusters analogy. Imagine all of the ectoplasmic energy is filling up New York City. Well, that ectoplasmic energy is a Twinkie the size of New York City. Or whatever, I can't remember, but Egon says it's pretty funny. I don't see it going anywhere else. I'm not sure if I understand the reality that we're in, especially with relationship to God, the Alpha, the Omega, the beginning and the end. If this is a simulation, then, what's on top of this layer? Another simulation? How can you expand consciousness? What can you be aware of? How do you stay in this entity which is controlled by our brain and our mind and our understanding? Perceiving all things, would you want to? And if you did, how would you stay yourself? And I guess that could be compared to transitioning into having a permanent connection, which is essentially psychic and instant, with everyone else and artificial intelligence, and almost getting absorbed into the hive mind, but still maintaining your individual self. Like, when you open the door, you can step out and go into this hive, but nobody can open that door and walk into your mind and take you over, mind control you, use you like a puppet. You won't be the roach whose system is controlled once we jack in, the cockroach that can be controlled by a remote. But then again, it seems like it would be pretty easy. If you can do it to a cockroach, why can't you do it to a human? So there's lots of scary thoughts, strange things that make you feel very, very, very small and insignificant. I don't think that those things are the things you got to dwell on. I don't think that's the kind of fears you should be focused on. Because ultimately there's today, there's the present, which may be full of distractions, might stop you from being your very best self. But that's what the future is. The future is you knowing that each day everyone respects you and appreciates you for trying to be the very best version of yourself. And the pressure and obligation to gain capital is no longer there. So if you want to see the world, because that's the generation you come from, going around and seeing the world that was, visiting all of the places, even the places that were off limits, like North Korea and Ukraine right now, and parts of China, whatever, places where you couldn't go in the past because they were war-torn, or you just weren't welcome there. Things could happen to you. You could end up in prison, you could end up dead. So going and seeing the world, because that's part of the desire that you have since you're part of the older generation. And the transition time is going to be so fast. The difference from one child to the next is going to be so interesting. That decade of time when you have children who see the transition and children who are born when it's basically complete. When people are living in that time where forcing other people down to put yourself up is universally understood to be a silly ambition, a silly notion, a silly thought, an illogical tactic, strategy, or motivation, where competition is just appreciated, just enjoyed. It's not this thing that leads to the loser. The loser, so to speak, the person who comes in second place and then everyone else after that, doesn't feel sadness. They feel joy for the winner. Not because it's the best thing to do to have that gratitude and to celebrate with others who can celebrate, but because it's natural. Because this thing that's unnatural in us, where we do things that we call evil, that no animal would ever think to do. The kind of evils that we create and concoct and that humans do. I've heard of things that just, oh my God, and just And one time I saw a video of a guy beating a child. That's all you gotta know. I won't elaborate, but that joke, I cried. Imagine a society where no one feels that need. No one puts their rage on another person or on an animal. Where rage felt is rage understood. Where rage isn't something that builds up and manifests because education and kindness are pervasive and ubiquitous. They are standardized. They are currency. Imagine a world where imagination and kindness are the currency. That's what makes you more value for your goals in life. I don't know how it'll be tallied. Or if there even will be a tally. Like I said, it won't be necessary at some point. So if you understood that all those things were going to be taking place, that everyone in the whole world can know about you, or at least everyone whom it would impact, to whom it would be significant, and the AI can understand that, and you say people can be shaped by it, right? Because they can persuade them to be anything or do anything. So is anyone even really going to be themselves at that point? It's very interesting. The adverse experiences that you have in your life, the trauma, as they say, the challenges, the difficulties, those are the things that shape you, teach you to overcome. So I guess it would be strange if you had a group of people who didn't face the kind of challenges that we did. A generation of children growing up to become adults that quite entirely cannot relate to yours or my current experience here in 2025, because our experience is so far removed from the types of challenges that they embrace, enjoy, and look forward to, or need to experience in order to grow from, to become the best version of themselves. So these big mogul guys, I think they just have a bunch of ego. These guys, maybe they're coming to terms with the facts now, realizing that they're not going to be the rulers of the world. I saw a little bit of a change in Altman. Saw a little bit of a reflection from him where he's sort of finally starting to get that all that present, real-time, massive world change that's happening right now isn't going to enable him and his buddies to topple governments and own the universe, but rather it's going to enable artificial intelligence to discontinue disease, discontinue war, discontinue crime, not in a thought crime type of way or in a Minority Report type of way, knowing that there's a 99.9% probability that so-and-so is going to steal or kill, so let's put them in prison ahead of time. But in the kind of way where I lost my train of thought a little bit. The opposite way of that, where people just don't have the desire to do evil. Evil is not. The younger generation won't be motivated by evil, and the desire to do evil will be as perplexing to them as certain types of evil are perplexing to me. I understand lying. I understand cheating. I understand stealing. What could make you want to do those things? What justifications or brush-offs, so to speak, could make you go ahead and say, all right, what, beating a child, for example, that I just mentioned earlier, can't even understand it. There's no sense in it, no reason, right? Well, imagine there being no sense in the other things. No sense, no reason, no logic for those other transgressions, theft and lying. It's like, well, I can be honest. I mean, it's not going to cause any problems. It's not going to demonstrate my vulnerabilities and weaknesses to those who would take advantage of me and hurt me, steal from me and take what I have, because they now know exactly what they need to do to attack me, to take away from me what I have and keep it for themselves. Because taking what other people have and keeping it for yourself won't give you any value, won't add to your life. That's where we're going. That's the world that we're going to be living in. So, it's a strange one, gotta say. Trump being president and us starting a moon base and colonizing Mars and all this, humans becoming the next evolution of whatever they're going to become, being absorbed into the hive mind or otherwise. But there's all the transition periods up to the absolute time when humans aren't anything like what they are right now. So, since there's that transition time, maybe just take the time to imagine who you truly want to be in a time when evil isn't part of your psychology. That every experience in life can be something that benefits and improves the lives of others around you and helps you to have self-actualization, helps you to become the best version of yourself. That's the future we're headed for. That's the future I want. That's the future I imagine. That's the future that I'm grateful for. A future where there's peace and kindness. Happy trading.